our special guest this week is Heather Marini. Heather is the Brown quarterbacks coach. She's in her season coaching with the Bears. When she was hired in 2020, she was the first female position coach in Division I history. She's a native of Australia, bachelor degrees at 2 universities in Australia. She is not new to quarterback success. She was a quarterback, and she mentored E.J. Perry, who's had time in the NFL, and now Jake Wilcox, as I mentioned, the leading passer in passing yards per game in the FCS. Heather, we are thrilled to have you here, Gary and I. Welcome aboard. How are you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
I tell you, just thrilling to learn about your background. I've taken note of you in recent years, and just outstanding to have you on our show. Can you kind of talk about that background? I mean, you made the move from Australia to the United States in 2019. Just tell us about how your time in the U.S.
Yeah, so it was great. I moved over here with my husband in 2017 after having coached American football in Australia for 10 years. I always grew up around sports, and it was such a neat experience to start coaching football on this side of the international date line, starting with a job at the New York Jets and seeing how things work at the highest level to being able to experience college football has been incredible.
Now, Heather, you talked about your Jets experience. I'm sure that was very rewarding for you. But also talk about the Ivy League. You're not the first, but there was an opportunity for coaching for female coaches at the Ivy League. Talk about that experience in that conference.
Yeah, I mean, the Ivy League has always done a great job leading the way and being innovative. And I think, for me, working with Coach Perry and the staff here, I wasn't the first female that Coach Perry had in his coaching staff, having had GAs and quality control assistants before. He was really open to just hiring the best people and having new ideas and, being able to come into a staff that, didn't blink an eye when I had a seat at the table was really rewarding. And I think the Ivy League overall has done a really great job in making sure that, women, but everyone who has ideas and experience in football, deserves to be an opportunity to contribute to programs. And I think, really coaches who just want the best for their programs are always open to hiring 100% of the population, not just limiting themselves to men.
Well, Coach, I mean, obviously James Perry, you mentioned, I mean, he's well-grounded at Brown. He was the 1999 Ivy League Offensive Player of the Year as the Brown quarterback. Now you're coaching him, but also coaching somebody like Jake Wilcox, who is leading the FCS in passing yards per game. Can you talk about that, what you're teaching Jake, and just him as a player?
Yeah, Jake's an unbelievable competitor. He's just such a tough kid, and really wants to always trying to get better. He really is a great leader, and for him, he always wants to compete, no matter what practice drill we're doing or what we're trying to work on. He always wants to be the best at it, and it's really starting to pay off for him. He's a great leader with his team, and he has such a great team around him as well. There's a lot of talent, both in the quarterback room that continue to push him to be better, and on the field as well with his teammates around him. So, but unbelievable competitor.
Heather, let's talk about your coaching style just a little bit here. I'm a football guy, and talk about quarterback play and give me a couple of ideas of what specific techniques you like to emphasize with quarterbacks.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of interesting because I came into football not from an X's and O's perspective, but from a technique perspective, but also like a sports and exercise science background. So a lot of the things that I'm working on, both physical technique, but also mental technique. Quarterbacks require some of the most difficult decision-making in sports. And for me, it's all about trying to promote not only being, that coach on the field and being able to see everything from an X's and O's perspective, but, routine and mental toughness, and how do you teach that, and how do you train that to be a a part of your skill set, and a great tool to be able to use, late in the fourth quarter when you've got to, when the team is relying on you to get the win. How do you stay in the zone and stay focused? So while traditionally quarterbacks are always very focused on the way that they throw, I think that's been a new thing that I've been able to introduce, which has been really, really fun.
Coach, you mentioned it's been almost 4 years you've been at Brown, but just your role there, how it's evolved. I mean, can you talk about your role now and the responsibilities that you have as compared to when you first arrived on campus? Being a female coach, I'm sure that role has developed over time.
Yeah, so when I first started Brown, I was the quality control coach on the offense, which was awesome. Got to work with Coach Smith, who was the quarterbacks coach at the time, and Coach Perry. And obviously with Coach Perry being a former quarterback, sitting in meetings with him is always something to learn and develop nuance of the offense that he's developed over time. For me, being promoted in 2020 to be the quarterbacks coach, while the world was in turmoil, it was actually a pretty smooth transition for me, having been in that room and worked with the quarterbacks the year previously. It was actually a really great transition to be able to get to know them, but also dig deeper into the offense, because we weren't playing that season. We were able to do a lot of the things while on Zoom, but a lot of the things all the coaches wish they could do when they're actually trying to focus on game planning and preparing for the next opponent. We didn't have that. So it was a really great transition for me to be able to build on the football IQ and knowledge of the game and knowledge of the playbook for EJ in that year. And he obviously had a standout performance the following year. So really it's been evolving in the way that Jake growing as a quarterback into the senior that he is now, but transitioning from EJ, who is an NFL caliber quarterback, to a younger first year starting quarterback last year with Jake. So it's been a great experience for me to be able to work with a really mature quarterback in EJ, and then to help Jake grow into the quarterback that he is now.
Heather, share some couple of things about what are some of your potential advantages of being a trailblazer as a female coach, and then what are obviously some of the obstacles you've had to overcome.
Yeah, so I think trailblazer is kind of funny for me. I've been doing this for 16 years now, so it kind of feels a little old hat, but it's been a fun experience, because for me, I didn't grow up with football, so being able to ask why we do things a certain way and challenge some ideas that maybe coaches really hadn't had to think about before can sometimes probably be a little frustrating for them, but also it's all about progressing and helping the team. So for me, challenging some of those things, but also bringing things in from other experiences. I've worked with a lot of different sports at varying levels, from national teams to professional sports that are not football, and being able to bring some of those things. For me, growing up in Australia, football was never on my radar, but football really is the combination of all those other sports put together. How agility drills that tennis players use and basketball players use can be translated into changing direction on a football field. It's really all human movement at the end of the day, and being able to introduce some novel things that I've learned from other sports has really been able to help my players, which is awesome. From a challenge perspective, I get all the time, oh, you never played. Well, actually, women's football here in the US, but also in Australia, has been around for a really long time. And there's a lot of really great female football players as well. But to me, it's just, it's a tool that I have in my toolbox, but it doesn't necessarily, describe everything that I am as a coach. And being able to major in coaching in college and coach other sports, being able to refine your skills in other ways other than just having a transition from being a player immediately to being a coach. It really has, while it's been a challenge, has been a really big part of developing my coaching skills.
That is truly fascinating, Heather. Now, Coach, Gary is a true pro all the way through. He's too refined to ask this question. I'm not as refined, so I'm going to go ahead and ask it. You're up in Rhode Island, Providence, in New England, not too far away from Foxborough. On a scale of 1 to 10, the low being 1, high being a 10, how would you rate Bill Belichick's personality, especially after a loss?
Well, I don't know Bill personally, so I never want to speculate what's like behind closed doors up there. I think any coach takes a loss hard, and part of being a good competitor is hating to lose. Everybody wants to win, but when you really hate to lose, it just makes everything amplified, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So he's had a lot of success over the years, and I certainly have respect for him. So whatever he's doing after a loss, I'm sure is only going to make him and the team better.
Well, I promise you this, Bill Belichick, after any loss, is pretty grumpy. He was always that way with us with the Giants, and he hasn't changed his tune whatsoever with his time with the Patriots. That's definitely the case. Hey, let me ask you a little bit about you're still playing. You're competitive now. You still have a spot as a quarterback and a punter with the Australian national team and also the Boston Renegades of the Women's Football Alliance. Talk about that and why do you keep going on the playing side as well?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. In Australia, I grew up. You play club sports on the weekend after your regular day job, and I think sports is integral to the Australian way of life. So I kind of was never really an unusual thing for me to think about doing. But being able to be part of the Boston Renegades and win some national championships the last few years has been unbelievable for me. Being around football, in my off time has always been something that I've done, and being able to learn from incredible female players and coaches who really dedicate themselves to the women's game has been, a great educational experience for me as well. I'm really humbled by the talent that I get to step on the field with, and humbled by the competition and how these women dedicate themselves to the game and how much they love football. To me, being around that when I'm not here at work, when football is a business and it's what you do for work, it's kind of nice to be able to celebrate football in all its forms and be a part of that. But working with Alison Cahill, who's one of the best women's quarterbacks who's ever stepped foot on the field. She's the Tom Brady of women's quarterbacks, and she's going to have more rings by the time she retires. So it's been an incredible experience. The World Championships is unbelievable experience to be a part of. Seeing women from all these different countries play football and celebrate it. Really, reminds you like how much we do this because we love the game so much. And sometimes it's very easy to get tied down in X's and O's and buried under wins and losses. But, really we're doing this for the love of the game, and who you play with and who you play for is really, really important.
Coach, one last question for me. If you were writing the Heather Marini story, what adjectives would you use?
Wow, that's a really great question. I think, for me, it's all about opportunities, and for me, hard work is always been important, but really it's about living and about taking opportunities as they come your way. I always say, like, you never know which handshake is going to be an opportunity for you later in life. So making the most of learning from new people, and I never would have got into football if I hadn't met my husband, and really embracing those opportunities is really what the story is about.
It's interesting, Heather, you've got a very good grasp of football. You've got a very good grasp of what it takes to be a football player and also teaching the game. I think I see another future for your career. You got one more thing that you possibly could do, and that is step into the broadcast booth and be a liaison to globally talk about football from your perspective. And I think you have a future there because I hear you articulate the game exceptionally well, and it's very thought oriented, and you're a football leader on the field, and I commend you for that.
I appreciate that.
Well, Gary and I have been thrilled to have you on today's podcast. Coach Heather Marini. We thank you so much. Heather is the Brown quarterbacks coach. As we mentioned, she was the first female position coach in Division I history for football. 2020, she was hired at Brown. Coach, we know you have a big game this week. Brown is at Penn Friday night. We're going to say go Bears. We like those Quakers, but go Bears this week. Coach, thank you so much for joining Gary and I today.
Thanks very much. Go Bears.